The massive sensor station hung in the darkness like a metal spider. Its long arms stretched out into space, each one covered with dishes and arrays that could see across entire star systems. The Zephyrian hegemony had built it here, at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, to watch for enemies. Commander Vexthal stood on the observation deck, his forearms folded behind his back. His purple skin gleamed under the station's lights. Like all Zephyrians, he was tall and thin, with large black eyes that could see far into the darkness of space. He had been watching this system for 3 rotations now, waiting for something interesting to happen. "Commander," called sensor operator Zithmar from her station, "we have detected something new." Vexthal turned, his long neck twisting smoothly. "Show me." The main screen lit up with dots and lines. In the center, a small red dot moved slowly toward their position. The computer had already started analyzing it, filling the screen with numbers and symbols. "What is it?" Vexthal asked. Zithmar touched her controls and more information appeared. "It appears to be a warship, Commander. But the readings are strange." Vexthal moved closer to look at the data. His people had the best sensors in the galaxy. They could look through the hull of any ship and see everything inside. They could count the crew members, identify their weapons, and map their computer systems. No enemy had ever surprised them. "Strange how?" he asked. "The ship is very primitive, Commander. Look at these energy readings. They are using simple fusion engines, not quantum drives. Their hull is made of basic metal, not smart materials. It is like looking at something from 1,000 years ago." Another operator, Kexdon, looked up from his station. "Commander, I am getting confused readings from their defensive systems. They seem to be using some kind of electromagnetic shielding." Vexthal laughed. It was a sound like wind through crystals. "Electromagnetic shielding? Against our quantum sensors? That is like trying to stop rain with a net." "Yes, Commander, that is what we thought too. But look at this." The screen changed, showing the sensor beams hitting the unknown ship, where they should have passed through easily. Giving clear pictures of the inside, instead the beams scattered and bounced. Some came back with useful information, but most returned only noise. "This cannot be right," Vexthal said. "Run the scan again." The operators worked their controls. The sensor beams reached out again, stronger this time. But the results were the same. The primitive electromagnetic fields around the enemy ship were somehow blocking their advanced technology. "Perhaps their shielding is more advanced than it appears," suggested Dr. Kethvar, the station's science officer. He was older than the others, with silver markings on his purple skin. "Maybe they are using quantum effects we do not understand." Vexthal shook his head. "No, look at their engine emissions. Look at their hull construction. This ship is built with technology far below galactic standards. They cannot possibly have shields better than ours." "Then why can we not see inside?" asked Zithmar. The commander studied the readings again. According to their sensors, the ship was about 800 meters long. It had multiple engine ports suggesting backup systems. The hull showed signs of repair work in several places. Everything about it screamed primitive construction. "What do we know about this species?" Vexthal asked. Dr. Kethvar called up files on his screen. "They call themselves humans. They come from a small planet in the outer spiral arm, very new to space travel. They have only been flying between stars for about 50 of their years." 50 years? Vexthal was surprised. Most species take hundreds of years to develop proper starships. "Yes, Commander. They seem to move very quickly. But they also seem to build things differently than other species." "Differently how?" "They appear to prefer redundancy over efficiency. Where most species would use one advanced system, humans seem to use many simple systems. They back up everything multiple times." Vexthal looked at the sensor readings again. Now that he thought about it, the ship did seem to have a lot of duplicate systems. Multiple power sources, multiple communication arrays, multiple life support systems. It was wasteful and inefficient. "Commander," Zithmar called out, "the human ship is changing course. It is heading directly for us." "Just one ship?" Vexthal asked. "Against our entire blockade fleet?" "Yes, Commander." "Should we prepare to engage?" Vexthal considered this. His fleet had 12 warships, each one more advanced than anything these humans could build. Their quantum weapons could destroy a planet. Their shields could stop any known weapon. Their sensors could track a single fighter from across a solar system. "No," he decided. "Let them come closer. I want to understand what we are dealing with first. Increase sensor power to maximum. I want to see inside that ship." The operators worked frantically at their controls. The station's massive sensor arrays turned toward the approaching human vessel. Energy flowed through the quantum scanning systems. This time, they would use enough power to look through solid rock. The beams reached out across space and struck the human ship. For a moment, the screens filled with clear data. Vextal could see corridors inside the ship, rooms filled with equipment, and then the readings became scrambled again. Worse than before. What happened? Vextal demanded. I do not know, Commander, Zithmar said, her voice confused. The scans started working, then something interfered with them. It is as if the ship is changing. Changing how? The electromagnetic patterns are shifting. Every time our sensors adapt to their shielding, the shielding changes too. It is like they are learning from our scans. Dr. Kethavar moved to look at the readings over her shoulder. That is impossible. Adaptive shielding requires quantum computers and AI systems far beyond what these humans should have. Then explain this, Zithmar said, pointing at her screen. The display showed the sensor beams trying to penetrate the human ship. Each time they found a way through the electromagnetic interference, new interference appeared to block them. It was like watching a living thing respond to attack. Commander, called out Kexton, I am detecting strange energy patterns from inside the ship. What kind of patterns? Biological patterns, Commander. Very strong ones. Vextal turned to stare at him. How many crew members are on that ship? Kexton worked his controls, trying to get a clear reading through the interference. I cannot get an exact count, Commander. But it appears to be many. Far more than should be needed for a ship that size. How many is many? At least 300, Commander. Maybe more. They seem to be spread throughout the entire ship, not just in the command areas. Vextal felt a chill run through him. 300 crew members on a ship that size? Most advanced warships needed only 20 or 30 people to operate. Why would the humans need so many? Commander, Zithmar said, her voice tight with worry. The human ship will be in weapons range in 1 hour. Vextal looked at the approaching red dot on the screen. Such a small thing, but it was raising more questions than he had ever encountered. His perfect sensors, which had never failed before, could not penetrate its primitive defenses. His advanced technology was being confused by simple electromagnetic fields. Prepare the fleet for battle, he ordered. But continue scanning. I want to know what we are really facing. As the operators rushed to carry out his orders, Vextal continued to stare at the screen. Something was wrong here, something his people had never encountered before. The human ship came closer, and with each passing minute, the sensor readings became more confusing. Whatever these humans were, they were not like any species the Zephyrians had ever fought. And that worried Vextal more than he wanted to admit. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the alien sensor station grow larger on the main screen. Her ship was old by human standards, built during the early days of their expansion into space. The hull showed patches where meteor strikes had been repaired. The engines made noises that would worry engineers from more advanced species. But Sarah loved this ship like it was alive. Captain, called Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. We're getting scanned again. Much stronger this time, Sarah nodded. She had expected this. How strong? Strong enough to cook a turkey, ma'am. Whatever they're using, it's powerful. Are our defenses holding? Torres checked his readings. Yes, ma'am. The electromagnetic field generators are working fine, but I'm getting some strange feedback patterns. Sarah walked over to look at his screen. The Defiance used a simple defense system that most species had given up long ago. Electromagnetic field generators created interference patterns around the ship. It was old technology, unreliable, and took a lot of power to maintain, but it was also hard to counter if you were not expecting it. They're trying to adapt to our fields, Torres explained. Their sensors keep changing frequency, looking for a way through. And? We're changing frequency too, ma'am. Faster than they are? Sarah smiled. This was exactly what she had hoped for. The aliens were clearly more advanced than humans. Their sensors were probably automated, controlled by computers that could think faster than any human mind. But humans had one advantage: they were unpredictable. Status on the field generators? She asked. Chief Engineer Murphy's voice came over the comm from deep in the ship's engine room. All 6 generators running strong, Captain. Teams are standing by with backup power if any of them fail. 6 field generators. Most species would use 1, maybe 2 for backup. Humans used 6 because they assumed at least half would break down during battle. They also had 12 people monitoring the generators, ready to repair or replace them manually if the automated systems failed. "Captain," called Commander Rodriguez from the tactical station, "I'm counting 12 enemy warships moving to intercept us. They'll be in weapons range in 45 minutes. "Just 12? Sarah asked. "I'm almost insulted." The bridge crew chuckled, but Sarah knew this was serious. Each of those alien ships was probably more advanced than anything in the human fleet. Their weapons would be stronger, their shields better, their computers faster. By any reasonable measure, the Defiance should not stand a chance. But humans had stopped being reasonable a long time ago. "All hands, this is the captain," Sarah announced over the ship's intercom. "We are approaching enemy forces. All crew members should be at their battle stations. Remember your training, trust your teammates, and keep your eyes open. We're going to show these aliens what humans can do." Throughout the ship, 347 people prepared for battle, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The Defiance carried twice as many crew members as ships from other species, and every one of them had a job to do. In the engine room, Murphy watched his readings while 6 other engineers monitored backup systems. If the main engines failed, they were ready to reroute power from anywhere on the ship. If the engine room was hit, teams in 4 other locations could take control of the engines remotely. In the weapons bay, Gunnery Sergeant Patterson checked the torpedo tubes while her crew ran final tests on the targeting systems. If the computer-controlled targeting failed, they had manual backup systems. If those failed, they could aim the weapons by eye and fire them manually. Throughout the ship, in corridors and maintenance spaces, damage control teams waited with tools and spare parts. If the ship was hit, they would be there to fix it. If hull plates were blown away, they would weld new ones in place. If life support failed, they would reroute air from other sections. "Captain," Torres called out, "the aliens are scanning us with something new, much more powerful than before." On the alien sensor station, Commander Vextal watched as his most powerful scanning arrays focused on the human ship. These sensors could look through solid rock. They could map the inside of a planet. They should easily penetrate any defensive screen. For a moment, they did. The screens filled with clear images of the human ship's interior. Vextal saw corridors packed with equipment, rooms full of people, and systems that seemed to be everywhere. "By the void," whispered Dr. Kethvar. "Look at all those people." The human ship was packed with crew members. They were not just in the command center and engine room, but everywhere. In maintenance tunnels, in storage rooms, in spaces so small that most species would consider them unusable. Humans seemed to be crawling through every part of their ship like insects in a nest. "How many are there?" Vextal asked. "I count over 300, Commander. But they keep moving around. It is hard to get an exact number. 300 people on one ship? What do they all do?" Before anyone could answer, the clear images on the screen dissolved into static again. The human ship's primitive electromagnetic fields had adapted to the new scanning frequency. "They are learning," Zithmar said in amazement. "Somehow they are learning from our scans and adjusting their defenses." "That is impossible," Vextal said. "Those are simple electromagnetic field generators. They cannot adapt that quickly without quantum computers." "Then how do you explain this?" Zithmar pointed to her screen, which showed the scanning beams being blocked and scattered by the human defenses. Dr. Kethvar studied the readings carefully. "Commander, I think the humans are adjusting their defenses manually." "Manually? You mean with their hands?" "Yes, Commander. Look at these patterns. The field adjustments are too random to be computer-controlled, but too fast to be fully automated. I believe they have people monitoring their defensive systems and changing them in real time." Vextal stared at the doctor. "That would require dozens of operators all working together, all making decisions faster than our computers can adapt. The humans seem to have dozens of operators." "Commander." On the human ship, Sarah watched her crew work with quiet pride. Torres and his team constantly adjusted the electromagnetic field generators, changing frequencies and power levels to stay ahead of the alien scans. When the computers could not adapt fast enough, humans took manual control. "New scan pattern coming in," Torres announced. "Quantum-based, very sophisticated." "Counter it," Sarah ordered. "Already on it, Captain." "Adjusting field geometry now." Throughout the ship, other teams worked just as hard. The engine crew fine-tuned their systems for maximum efficiency. The weapons crew prepared their armaments. The damage control teams positioned themselves for quick response to any hits. But most importantly, the communication crews kept everyone connected. Not through fancy quantum links or AI systems, but through old-fashioned voice tubes, fiber optic cables, and human runners carrying messages between sections. "Captain," called Commander Rodriguez. "The aliens have stopped scanning us." Sarah looked at the main screen. The alien warships had formed a battle line, but they were not advancing. They seemed to be waiting. They're confused, Sarah realized. They don't understand what they're looking at. She was right. On the alien sensor station, Bexthal and his officers studied the confusing data from the human ship. Every scan revealed something new and puzzling. "Commander," said Zithmar, "I have been analyzing the human ship's structure. It makes no sense. Explain." "Most warships have centralized systems. One main computer, one main reactor, one command center. If you destroy these key systems, the ship is defeated, but the human ship has no central systems." "What do you mean?" "They have 6 reactors, not one. 12 communication systems, multiple command centers. Everything is spread out and interconnected. There is no single point of failure." Dr. Kethvar nodded. "It is the most inefficient design I have ever seen, but also the most difficult to disable. And all those people," added Kexton, "they are not just operating the ship's systems. They are the ship's systems. Every function has human backup. Every system has human oversight." Vexthal felt a chill of understanding. "You mean if we destroy their computers, the humans will take manual control?" "Yes, Commander. If we destroy their engines, human engineers will repair them. If we destroy their weapons, human crews will build new ones. If we breach their hull, human workers will patch the holes. That is impossible. No species can coordinate that many people during battle. The humans seem to think they can, Commander." Vexthal looked at the approaching human ship with new eyes. It was not just a warship with a crew. It was something much more dangerous. A crew that had built a warship around itself. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "We attack in 15 minutes. And tell them to be ready for anything." As the alien fleet prepared for battle, Sarah Chen smiled grimly. The aliens' confusion was exactly what she had hoped for. They were trying to understand humans using their own logic, their own way of thinking. But humans did not think like other species. They were chaotic, redundant, and utterly unpredictable, and they were about to prove it. Dr. Kethvar stood in his laboratory deep inside the sensor station, staring at the data flowing across multiple screens. For the past hour, he had been analyzing every piece of information they had collected about the human warship. What he was seeing made no sense according to everything he knew about spacefaring civilizations. "Computer, display biological scan results from the human vessel," he commanded. The main screen filled with heat signatures and life signs detected from inside the enemy ship. What he saw made his 4 hearts beat faster. The ship was not just crude, it was infested with humans. "By the ancestors," he whispered. Dr. Kethvar had studied dozens of species during his long career. He had seen many different ways that civilizations organized their military forces. Some used advanced AI to run their ships with minimal crews. Others relied on genetically enhanced soldiers. A few species even used robotic systems for everything, except command decisions. But he had never seen anything like this. The human ship showed life signs in places where no rational designer would put crew members. There were humans in the ventilation shafts, humans in storage compartments, humans in spaces between the hull plates that were barely large enough for a person to squeeze through. "Computer, analyze crew distribution patterns." New data appeared on the screen. According to his calculations, the human ship carried nearly 10 times more crew members than necessary. Most of them were not even in primary operating positions. They were scattered throughout the vessel in what appeared to be random locations. "This cannot be right," he muttered, checking his calculations again. But the numbers did not lie. The humans had people everywhere, not just operating their systems, but backing up their systems and backing up their backups. It was wasteful beyond belief, yet somehow it worked. Dr. Kethvar activated his communication link to the command center. "Commander Vexthal, I need to speak with you immediately. I have discovered something disturbing about the human vessel. I am busy preparing for battle, Doctor. Can this wait?" "No, Commander. You need to see this before we engage them." A few minutes later, Vexthal arrived in the laboratory with several of his senior officers. Dr. Kethvar immediately began displaying his findings. "Commander, look at these biological scans. The human ship contains over 340 crew members. We already knew their crew was large, Doctor. But Commander, you do not understand. These are not just crew members operating the ship. These humans are integrated into every system aboard that vessel. Dr. Kethavar changed the display to show a cutaway view of the human ship. Red dots marked the location of each detected human. The ship looked like it had a disease. Every section was crawling with red dots. Look at this section here. The doctor pointed to one area of the ship. This appears to be their main engine room. Most species would have 5 or 6 people operating the engines. The humans have 18. 18 people to run one engine room? Asked Captain Tethmore, one of Vexthal's ship commanders. That is incredibly wasteful. That is not the worst part, Dr. Kethvar continued. They have backup engine rooms. 3 of them. Each one also has 18 people. The officer stared at the display in amazement. But Commander, even that is not the most disturbing part. Look at these areas here. The doctor highlighted several small spaces throughout the ship. These spaces are too small to be proper crew quarters or work areas. Yet each one contains humans. What are they doing in there? Vexthal asked. I believe they are monitoring and maintaining backup systems, Commander. The humans seem to have put people everywhere in their ship watching everything, ready to fix anything that breaks. Commander Vexthal studied the display with growing unease. Doctor, are you telling me that the humans have crew members stationed throughout their entire vessel, not just in the primary operating areas? Yes, Commander. But it is worse than that. I believe these humans can communicate with each other without using their main computer systems. How? Dr. Kethvar brought up new readings. Look at these energy patterns. The humans have installed physical communication lines throughout their ship. Fiber optic cables, voice tubes, even simple electrical wires. If their main communication system fails, they can still talk to each other using these backup methods. That is primitive, said Captain Tethmore. Yes, but it is also impossible to disrupt with our electronic warfare systems, the doctor replied. Commander, I think we have been looking at this wrong. We have been thinking of the human vessel as a ship with a crew, but I now believe it is actually a crew that has built a ship around itself. Silence filled the laboratory as the officers absorbed this information. Explain, Vexthal said quietly. Most species design their ships first, then train crews to operate them. The ship is the important part, and the crew is just there to run it. But the humans seem to have done the opposite. They designed their crew structure first, then built a ship to support that crew. Dr. Kethvar changed the display again, showing the ship's internal structure. Look at how they have organized their vessel. Every system has multiple backups. Every function has human oversight. Every possible failure point has people standing by to fix it manually. But that is chaos, protested Captain Tethmore. How do they coordinate so many people? How do they make decisions quickly enough for battle? I do not know, Dr. Kethvar admitted. But somehow they do. Watch these scan results from when we were probing their defenses. The screen showed the electromagnetic field patterns around the human ship changing in real time. The adjustments were too fast for computer automation, but too coordinated to be random. They were adjusting their defensive fields manually, the doctor explained. Dozens of humans all working together, all making changes faster than our computers could adapt. Vexthal felt a cold fear growing in his chest. Doctor, what are you saying? Commander, I believe we are about to fight an enemy unlike anything we have ever encountered. The humans do not think like us. They do not organize like us. They do not build their ships like us. But they are primitive, Captain Tethmore insisted. Look at their technology. Simple metal hulls, basic fusion engines, electromagnetic field generators that should have been obsolete centuries ago. Their technology is primitive, Dr. Kethvar agreed. But their methods are not. They have solved the problem of coordinating complex systems in a way that no other species has attempted. How? They use humans instead of computers for everything that matters. Where we would use one advanced AI system, they use dozens of human minds working together. Where we would have one backup system, they have 6, each one monitored by people. Vexthal stared at the display showing the human ship. It was like looking at an alien creature that happened to be made of metal instead of flesh. Doctor, what are our chances in battle against such an enemy? Dr. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. Commander, our ships are designed to fight other ships like ours. We target central computer cores, main reactors, command bridges. We use electronic warfare to disrupt enemy coordination. We rely on our superior technology to overwhelm primitive defenses. And the humans have no central computer cores to target, no main reactors to destroy, no single command bridge, and their primitive defenses seem to be working against our advanced sensors. Are you saying we cannot defeat one primitive human warship? Commander, I am saying that one primitive human warship is not what we are fighting. We are fighting against 340 humans who happen to be carrying a warship around with them. The laboratory fell silent again. Through the viewing port, they could see the human vessel growing larger as it approached their position. It looked small and fragile compared to their mighty warships. But Dr. Kethvar's analysis suggested that appearances could be deceiving. Commander, said Captain Tethmore finally, surely our superior firepower will be enough. We have 12 ships against their one. Perhaps, Dr. Kethvar replied, but consider this. When we damage one of their systems, humans will be there to repair it immediately. When we breach their hull, humans will patch the holes. When we disrupt their communications, humans will find other ways to coordinate. So what do you recommend? Dr. Kethvar looked at the approaching human ship one more time. Commander, I recommend that we do not underestimate them. The humans may be primitive, but they have found a way to make their primitiveness into a strength. Vexthal activated his communication link to the fleet. All ships, this is the commander. Prepare for battle, but be ready for unusual tactics from the enemy. They are not like other species we have fought. As the alien fleet prepared to engage, Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the enemy warships take their positions. She knew her ship was outnumbered and outgunned. But she also knew something the aliens did not. Humans had never fought a fair fight in their lives, and they were not about to start now. The first shots of the battle lit up the darkness of space like deadly fireworks. Commander Vexthal watched from his command ship as his fleet unleashed their most powerful weapons against the lone human vessel. Quantum torpedoes designed to overload any computer system streaked toward their target. Plasma beams hot enough to melt through any known armor reached out across the void. The alien commander expected to see the human ship explode in a brilliant flash. Instead, he watched in confusion as the enemy vessel seemed to absorb the punishment and keep flying. Report, Vexthal demanded. Direct hits, Commander, reported his weapons officer. 3 quantum torpedoes and 2 plasma beams struck the target, but what? The human ship is still functional, sir. All systems appear to be operational. Vexthal stared at his tactical display. This was impossible. Those quantum torpedoes should have fried every computer circuit on the human ship. The plasma beams should have burned through their hull like paper. Scan the target, he ordered. Show me the damage. The results that came back made no sense. The human ship showed signs of impact damage. Scorched hull plates, twisted metal, holes blown in their outer armor. But all their systems were still working. Their engines still pushed them forward. Their weapons were still ready to fire. How are they still functioning? Vexthal asked. His sensor operator Zithmar worked frantically at her controls. Commander, I am detecting massive activity inside the human vessel. It appears their crew is repairing the damage as we inflict it. During combat? That is impossible. No, Commander. Look at these readings. The main screen showed thermal images from inside the human ship. Dozens of figures were moving through the damaged sections, working to repair systems and seal breaches. Even while the battle raged around them, humans were crawling through their ship fixing whatever broke. On board the Defiance, Captain Sarah Chen held onto her command chair as another enemy plasma beam struck their hull. The lights flickered and she could feel the vibration through the deck plates. Damage report, she called out. Hull breach on Deck 7, came the reply from Chief Damage Control Officer Williams. Teams are already moving to seal it. Engine room reports minor damage to Reactor 3, but Reactors 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 are still at full power. Sarah nodded. This was exactly what they had trained for. The aliens were trying to disable their ship with precise, devastating attacks. But humans did not build ships that could be disabled easily. Engineering, give me full power to the forward shields, she ordered. Captain, this is Murphy in engineering. Forward shields are already down. That last hit took them out completely. Then reroute power to the backup shields. Already done, Captain. Backup shields are holding at 60%. What about the tertiary shield generators? Coming online now, Captain. We'll have them at full power in 2 minutes. Sarah smiled grimly. The aliens had destroyed their primary shield system with one hit. On most ships, that would leave them defenseless. But the Defiance carried 6 different shield systems, each one capable of protecting the ship on its own. In the alien fleet, Captain Tethmore was having similar problems with his target. He had been firing at the human ship for 10 minutes, scoring hit after hit. But the enemy vessel refused to die. "Captain," called his weapons officer, "we have destroyed their main communication array." "Good. They should have trouble coordinating their defenses now." But even as he spoke, the human ship began evasive maneuvers that were clearly coordinated. Somehow they were still communicating. "How are they doing that?" Tethmore demanded. His sensor operator studied the readings. "Captain, I believe they are using backup communication systems. I detect fiber optic signals running throughout their ship." "Fiber optics? That technology is centuries old." "Yes, Captain. But it works even when their advanced systems are destroyed." Tethmore felt a growing frustration. Every time his weapons destroyed a human system, they seemed to have another system ready to replace it. It was like fighting an enemy that grew new limbs every time you cut one off. On the human ship, Lieutenant Torres coordinated the defensive systems from his partially destroyed sensor station. The main computer had been fried by the aliens' first attack, so he was running everything manually. "Captain, incoming missiles from the ship on our port side," he announced. "Can you track them?" "Not with our main sensors, ma'am. But I've got 3 people with telescopes giving me visual tracking data." Sarah almost laughed. Telescopes. While the aliens were using quantum sensors that could see through solid matter, her crew was aiming their weapons by looking through simple optical telescopes. And somehow, it was working. "Fire torpedoes, manual targeting," she ordered. In the weapons bay, Gunnery Sergeant Patterson calculated the firing solution in her head, using data called out by crew members with binoculars. Her finger hovered over the manual firing button. "Firing now," she announced. 4 human torpedoes streaked toward their target. They were primitive by galactic standards, simple fusion warheads with basic guidance systems. But they found their mark, exploding against the alien ship's shields. Captain Tethmore felt his ship shudder under the impact. "Shields down to 70%, his officer reported. "How did they hit us?" "We destroyed their targeting computers." "I do not know, Captain." But Dr. Kethvar, monitoring the battle from the sensor station, was beginning to understand. The humans were not using their targeting computers. They were aiming their weapons manually, like ancient warriors with spears and arrows. "Commander Vexthal," he called over the communication link. "The humans are not fighting like a modern space force." "What do you mean, Doctor?" "They are improvising everything. When we destroy their computers, they aim by eye. When we damage their engines, they repair them with hand tools. When we breach their hull, they patch the holes with metal plates." Vexthal watched another flight of torpedoes streak toward the human ship. This time, he saw the impact clearly. The warheads exploded against the enemy hull, blowing a massive hole in their side. Atmosphere vented into space in a glittering cloud of ice crystals. "Got them," he said with satisfaction. But his satisfaction turned to disbelief as he watched the human crew response. Within minutes, figures in spacesuits were outside the ship, welding metal patches over the hole. More crew members inside were installing temporary bulkheads and rerouting life support systems. "They are repairing hull damage during combat," Vexthal whispered, "while we are still shooting at them." "Commander," called his communications officer, "Captain Tethmore reports that his ship has been hit. The humans somehow scored a direct hit on his engine room." "How badly damaged?" "His main engines are offline, Commander. He is requesting permission to withdraw for repairs." Vexthal stared at his tactical display. One of his most powerful warships had been disabled by a ship that should have been destroyed 10 times over. The human vessel was covered with scorch marks and patched hull breaches, but it was still fighting. "All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel," he ordered. "Destroy it before they can repair any more damage." The entire alien fleet turned their weapons on the Defiance. Dozens of energy beams and torpedo salvos struck the human ship in a devastating barrage. The small vessel disappeared in a cloud of explosions and debris. When the smoke cleared, Vexthal expected to see nothing but wreckage. Instead, the human ship was still there, battered but intact. Its hull was a patchwork of repairs and jury-rigged armor plates. But its engines still burned and its weapons were still firing. "This is impossible," he said. Dr. Kethvar's voice came over the communication system, heavy with exhaustion and something that might have been fear. "Commander, I have been analyzing the human ship throughout this battle. I now understand what we are fighting. Explain. The humans have not built a warship, Commander. They have built a mobile repair facility that happens to carry weapons. What? Every system on that ship is designed to be repaired quickly during battle. Every crew member is trained to fix damage while under fire. Every piece of equipment has backup systems and spare parts nearby. Vexthal looked at the tactical display showing the human ship. It should have been destroyed by now. Any rational enemy would have been defeated by the firepower his fleet had unleashed. But humans, apparently, were not rational. Commander, his weapons officer reported, we are running low on torpedo ammunition. How is that possible? We carry enough firepower to destroy a dozen warships. Yes, Commander. But we have been firing at this one ship for over an hour and it refuses to die. On the Defiance, Captain Sarah Chen surveyed her bridge. Half the control stations were destroyed or badly damaged. The main screen flickered with static. Smoke hung in the air from burned-out circuits. But her crew was still at their posts, still fighting. Chief Murphy called up from engineering to report that they had lost 3 of their 6 reactors, but the remaining 3 were running at full power. The weapons crews reported that they were down to 50% ammunition, but they were still firing. And throughout the ship, damage control teams continued their work, patching holes, rerouting power, and keeping the Defiance alive through pure human stubbornness. Status report, Sarah called out. We're hurt. Captain, Commander Rodriguez replied. But we're not beaten, Sarah nodded. That was all she needed to know. Commander Vexthal stared at his tactical display with growing horror. 2 hours into the battle, his magnificent fleet was falling apart while the human ship continued to fight. 3 of his warships had been forced to withdraw with critical damage. 2 more had exhausted their ammunition. The rest were running low on power after maintaining continuous fire. And still, the human vessel refused to die. Commander, reported Captain Tethmore from his damaged ship, I have lost main power. My crew is attempting repairs, but it will take hours. How? Vexthal demanded. How did one primitive ship do this to us? Through his viewing port, he could see the human vessel limping through space. Its hull was a patchwork of scorch marks, welded patches, and emergency repairs. Whole sections had been blown away and replaced with metal plates that did not match the original armor. It looked like it should have fallen apart hours ago, but it was still fighting. Commander, called his sensor operator. The human ship is changing course. It appears to be heading directly for us. Vexthal felt ice in his veins. They are attacking? After all the damage they have taken? Yes, Commander. And they are accelerating. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Sarah Chen watched the alien command ship grow larger on her patched and flickering main screen. Her ship had taken terrible damage, but her crew had never stopped working to keep it functional. Engineering, how much power can you give me? She asked. Chief Murphy's voice crackled through the emergency communication system. Captain, we're down to 2 reactors, but I can give you everything they have. Fair warning, though, if we push them too hard, they might explode. Will the explosion take out the ship? Probably not, Captain. We've got blast containment around both reactors and teams standing by with fire suppression equipment. Sarah nodded. Even now, facing possible reactor failure, her crew had backup plans for their backup plans. All right, Murphy. Give me everything you have. The Defiance surged forward, its remaining engines pushing it toward the alien command ship at maximum acceleration. Throughout the vessel, crew members prepared for what they all knew would be the final phase of the battle. Commander Vexthal watched the approaching human ship and felt something he had never experienced before in battle. Fear. Not fear of death, he was a warrior and had faced that many times. This was something different. This was the fear of fighting an enemy that could not be understood or defeated using normal methods. All weapons target the human ship, he ordered. Everything we have. His ship's powerful guns opened fire, sending streams of plasma and quantum torpedoes toward the approaching enemy. The human vessel staggered under the impacts, pieces of its hull spinning away into space. But still it came on. Direct hit to their bridge, reported his weapons officer. The command center should be destroyed. But the human ship did not slow down or change course. Somehow, it was still being controlled. On the Defiance, Captain Sarah Chen picked herself up from the deck where the last impact had thrown her. The bridge was a ruin of twisted metal and sparking cables. Half her crew was injured and all the main control stations were destroyed. "Emergency command post," she called out. "Where is my backup bridge?" "Here, Captain." Lieutenant Torres was calling from a maintenance corridor. He had set up a makeshift command center using portable computers and handheld radios. Sarah crawled through the wreckage to reach him. Around her, surviving crew members were already working to reroute critical systems through the emergency controls. "Status?" she asked. "We've lost main engines, Captain, but Chief Murphy has jury-rigged the maneuvering thrusters to give us forward motion. We're still heading for the alien command ship. Weapons. Forward torpedo tubes are still functional. Gunnery Sergeant Patterson is controlling them manually from the weapons bay." Sarah looked at the simple display Torres had cobbled together. It showed their ship limping toward the enemy vessel on nothing but attitude thrusters and human determination. "Time to target?" 2 minutes, Captain." Commander Vexthal watched the human ship approach with a mixture of disbelief and admiration. By all logic, it should have been a drifting hulk by now. His fleet had poured enough firepower into it to destroy a small moon. Yet somehow it kept coming. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "the human vessel will reach us in 90 seconds. Should we prepare to ram?" "No," Vexthal said quietly. "Take us away from them. Maximum speed. Commander, you heard me. Retreat." As the alien command ship began to pull away, Captain Sarah Chen realized they would not be able to catch their target. The Defiance was too badly damaged to keep up with a fleeing enemy. "Captain," Torres called out, "we're not going to make it. They're pulling away from us." Sarah thought for a moment, then made a decision that would become legend in human military history. "All hands. This is the captain. Prepare to abandon ship. All crew to escape pods immediately." "Captain?" Torres looked at her in confusion. "You heard me, Lieutenant. Everyone off the ship." "That's an order." As her crew reluctantly began moving to the escape pod, Sarah remained at the emergency command post with just a handful of volunteers. They would stay behind to ensure the ship completed its final mission. "Engineering, this is the captain. Can you give me one last burst of power?" Murphy's voice came back filled with static. "Captain, if I overload the reactors, this whole ship is going to blow up." "That's the idea, Chief." There was silence for a moment, then Murphy's voice came back with grim determination. "Understood, Captain. Overloading reactors now. You'll have about 30 seconds before they go critical." Sarah looked at the alien command ship trying to escape on the flickering display. 30 seconds should be enough." She pushed the Defiance's damaged engines to their absolute limit. The ship groaned and shuddered as its overloaded reactors fought to provide power. Warning alarms sounded throughout the vessel as systems began to fail catastrophically. But for 30 seconds, the battered human warship moved like it was new again. Commander Vexthal watched in horror as the human ship suddenly accelerated toward his vessel. His crew was working frantically to increase their own speed, but the human vessel was closing the distance rapidly. "How are they doing that?" he demanded. "Their engines were destroyed." "Commander," Dr. Kethvar's voice came over the communication system. "I believe they are overloading their reactors. The energy readings are off the scale. They are going to destroy their own ship." "Yes, Commander. And they are going to destroy us as well." Vexthal realized with crystal clarity that he was about to die, not in glorious combat, but because he had underestimated an enemy that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. The human ship struck his vessel at ramming speed, just as its reactors went critical. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, both ships were gone. The Defiance had given everything, including the lives of its crew, to prove a point that would echo through the galaxy for centuries to come. The surviving alien ships fled in panic, carrying with them the story of the battle. They told of humans who fought like demons, who refused to die when killed, who turned their own primitive technology into weapons of impossible effectiveness. But more than that, they told of humans who were willing to die to win. Dr. Kethvar survived the battle, rescued from the wreckage of the sensor station by one of the fleeing warships. In his final report to the hegemony leadership, he wrote, "We have encountered a species unlike any in our records. The humans do not fight wars the way civilized species do. They do not build ships the way rational beings do. They do not think the way normal creatures think. They are chaos given form. They are redundancy made into art. They are primitiveness turned into strength. We targeted their technology and found it wanting. We targeted their ship and found it expendable. We targeted their crew and found them irreplaceable. The humans do not build war machines. They build machines around their warriors, and those warriors will fight with broken weapons, damaged ships, and failing systems until their last breath. I recommend that the hegemony avoid future conflicts with this species, not because we cannot defeat them, but because the cost of victory against humans is higher than any rational being should be willing to pay. The report was filed away in the hegemony archives, but word of the battle spread throughout the galaxy. The story of the human ship that refused to die became legend. Pirates began to avoid human space. Aggressive empires reconsidered their expansion plans, and in the depths of space, human shipyards began building new vessels. Each one carried the lessons learned from the Defiance. Each one was crewed by people who understood that sometimes the best technology is the one that never gives up. The galaxy had learned something important about humanity. They might be primitive, chaotic, and inefficient, but they were also absolutely terrifying when cornered, and humans, it seemed, were always cornered.